Good morning, Seekers, and welcome back to episode 4 of the Critical Grays podcast. I'm your co-host, Bodhi, also known as Bodhi on the Discords, and I'm joined by my co-host, Ethan, also known as Jabroni Apologist on the Discords.
Hello, hello.
Ethan, in a hypothetical situation where a woodchuck could chuck wood, how much wood could said woodchuck chuck?
So I'd like to take a moment to point out that woodchucks are also known as groundhogs and whistle pigs, and I think it's kind of unfair that that animal gets to have three amazing names. It doesn't have to choose. We have three separate names for that animal, and they're all A tier winners. Holy cow! Anyway, um, they got kind of little hands. And they don't have we take this for granted, but one of the things that humans are particularly good at is chucking things, spears and all that. So I'm going to say, I don't know, like a handful of sticks. I don't think
Okay.
we're getting any better than that.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Although Whistle Pig, I don't know why they called the movie Groundhog Day when Whistle Pig Day has a much better ring to it.
It was right there. It was right there.
Yep. All right. Well, on this episode, we've got an exciting discussion with Mattachew about Sigrith. But before we get started with that, I want to give a couple quick shout outs. So, firstly, right now, there's a anniversary sale on the Malediction website. So if you have not bought anything for this game and you want to do that, now is a pretty good time to do so. We're not sponsored unless Loot Studios really wants to be generous. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, if you're looking for any product, there's going to be new stuff soon. And if you want what's currently out, I think it's like 20% off. So go check that out. Also, a really nice fellow named Jojo Mojo reached out to me just earlier today. And he's created an app called Malediction Stats. And so I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. But it's going to be able to track, you can upload your games so that we'll be able to get actual data. And it looks really nice. There's a lot of these third-party tools that are just kind of okay or look like they were coded in Windows 7. But I was messing around with it a little bit earlier and it looks really good.
Yeah.
So I'm actually super excited once we go over all of the seekers that are currently in the game. Hopefully by that point, we'll have some more data on the app and we'll have Jojo Mojo on and we can kind of talk about some trends and what that will mean for the meta. So if you haven't heard of it yet, go check it out. Like I said, link down in the description and upload your games so we can start collecting some data. And then finally, we, as of this episode tonight, have finished all of the monocolored seekers currently in the game. And so if you have any suggestions for who you want to hear about with the dual colored seekers, please let us know. I have a few ideas in mind of some that I'd like to cover, but I'm definitely open to suggestions. So the best ways to reach out are going to be on Discord in the little Critical Grays channel thing. You can also just message me or Ethan directly. I'm totally open to that. And yeah, we'll get right into this episode. All right, we're here with Matt, aka Mattachew, on the Discords, and we're going to be talking Sigrith today. Matt, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got into Malediction?
Hey, my name is Matt. I got into Malediction. I think it's kind of a funny story. So I would the growing on Facebook, and I just saw a Facebook ad for it. And then when I looked on the webpage, they had a thing for retailers. And at the time, I would order doing the game ordering for my local game store. So I'm like, let me look into this. So I requested more information, and they emailed me, and they're like, "Hey, let's have a Zoom meeting." And I'm like, I have no idea what the game is. So I quickly downloaded the Print and Pray. I forced my local gaming group to play with me, and I was immediately hooked. Um, and that's kind of how I found out about it. It was like last October, but
That's fair enough. That's probably the most impromptu story that I've heard.
Oh, and like
Like-
last October, that's that by this game standard, that like you're almost an old head at that point.
yeah. Like I got into it like right at the boxes was hitting retail stores. And I started out with that Print and Pray and a little like gluing all the stuff to cardboard and playing with printed cards on the back of like trees with Pokemon cards. And they were not good yet. I don't recommend the Print and Pray, but it was just good enough to get me hooked.
Nice.
From the get-go, were you playing Sigrith, or did you start around with some other characters?
No, I would play Sigrith. Sigrith is very me coded. I'm very much into paladin and like armored knights and stuff like that. So when I was introducing the game to my two best friends, without telling them who I was eyeing to play, I told them all the secrets, and they both immediately they're like, "Okay, so Matt's playing this one," and pointed immediately at Sigrith.
That's awesome. And you've done pretty well in some tournaments recently, right?
Yeah, at Adepticon I cooked third.
Nice.
I only lost to the person that cooked first.
Which conveniently was also Sigrith. So
Yeah.
you can't feel too bad.
Yeah, they just had a slightly. Well, that came down to like 2 dice rolls. I needed a hit, but I grazed, and then they got a retaliation attack from the legacy. That will go into more how the legacy works in a bit, I think. But then they hit when I needed them to graze, and that was at a key moment that turned the tide in their favor, and I could not recover from that.
That's a lot of times what this game just comes down to if the sides are evenly matched.
Yeah. Well, with all of that being said, let's move in. Ethan, why don't you tell us a little bit about Sigrith's lore?
So, won't be that big a deal compared to the other ones. Sigrith is a very simple sort of story and kind of a simple person, and I don't mean stupid. I mean that she's somebody who's filled with conviction. So, Sigrith seems to have been what we know about her. She was born and raised in the lands of the Order of the Shattered Throne. The big central power on the continent, the Templars, the people holding up the old order of the Triumvirate from before the war. And we don't actually have a huge amount of information about her, but we do know that from a young age, she heard a mysterious voice telling her to go forth into the darkness and do cool stuff in the name of her gods. And if this is sounding like Joan of Arc to you, I think that's intentional. She apparently just one day, beckoned by the voice, she joined one of the various overlapping militaries of the Order of the Shattered Throne. I think they technically have like 7. Their government's weird. And she went into battle somewhere at some time. And at the end of the battle, they just found her with her legacy, Andravos, the Shield of the Everlasting. It's unclear if she took it off of the person who used to have it, or if she just found it. But now, she knew where the voice had been coming from. It was this relic, this legacy. And after some poking and prodding and making sure she would be a good tool for their uses, the leadership of the order decided that she was the rightful owner and kind of turned her into a poster child for their cause. And that's kind of it. She's now going forward into the malediction and probably other places, spreading the will of the order. However, it is notable that while she's kind of like a Captain America figure, like she's also like a propaganda head because she's cool and she saves people and she's got a neat shield that's a relic. But it's noted that while the church and like the leadership of her country is using her for their own ends, as you'd expect, she has a higher purpose because she's still in direct communication with her legacy with this shield, and it keeps telling her that there is a way to set the world right, dead center in the malediction. So while she is, doing what the order says to do, she's also kind of following her own agenda. I'd say it is also worthy of note that the legacy itself is an interesting and storied thing. As kind of the center of the setting, the Order of the Shattered Throne just has a bajillion pounds of lore compared to everything else. Like they're the protagonists for both better and worse. They have a lot of fleshing out. So the shield was the reason it has a face that is crying blood is because it is from the statue to the entrance to the throne room of the Triumvirate. The three demigods that ruled over the Order back when it was, before it was shattered. So it probably has something to do with the history of these three figures. And it's passed throughout the centuries from pious hand to pious hand, and she's only the latest. So it is unclear. She is a very faithful person. She probably believes in the cause of the Order of the Shattered Throne to bring about this heaven on earth that the Triumvirate wanted for humanity more than anybody else. But it's also implied there are people essentially kind of using her, and the shield itself. I mean, this isn't her first, or rather, this isn't the shield's first user. So, whether she will be led astray, perhaps, or used, perhaps find her own path as a result of those influencing her, we'll see.
So I got a quite different interpretation when I was reading the lore on her.
Mm.
I don't think the conviction is coming so much from herself and more coming from the Tilt. Like the Tilt had been a big influence on her, but it states in the lore that the Tilt is who he saved and who he killed. And like it said in one of the king that like he doesn't really trust the council, like the head of the order, but the Tilt haven't told her to kill them yet, so he's still working with them.
Wow.
So it strikes me more as lawful neutral than lawful good.
Mhm.
Like the Tilt is the one that defining her code of ethics, and like he committed to the Tilt and committed to like her cards. I don't think it's so much to the order itself, or I think it's more of like he trusts the Tilt, and I think he's going that path.
Mhm.
So I think it could lead to some interesting stuff on if her and the Tilt finally at one point don't agree on tucking.
Yeah, well, and to your point, that is the case for like all four, at least for the mono seekers we've talked about so far. Thundersteps, Pollinor, Vorendal, and now Sigrith. They're all of these factions, but they all have their own agendas. Pollinor is getting orders from his legacy too. Thundersteps, like these relationships between these legacies and these seekers are supposedly, essentially partnerships between these magical items and these powerful people. But it seems like, with maybe the exception of Vorendal, who's just, not a great guy, we'll put it that way, the legacies might be exuding almost an undue influence over the Seekers.
That's
So
kind
that's
of
pretty
like
interesting.
part of the malediction world, or Agnar, I suppose, is that almost all of these magical items are imbued with somebody's soul. So like all of the legacies and the relics are like some kind of living being
Right. Well, and
just
the
put
whole
into an object. So
the leadership of the Lucidii, I think they're called, of the leadership of the Order of the Shattered Throne are all people who essentially have like a seventh of the soul of one of their original triumvirate guys. Like it's the same guy, and he knew the war was Fubar and he was dying, so he split his soul into 7 parts. And now these kind of priest kings have different components of them, and it's like the same way over with the Legion. Is they have basically their royal family that is forever influencing their politics because the literal rod and scepter that is passed down between the kings and queens of the dead are imbued with the souls of its founders. So it's interesting because like you had this first race of guys and the everlasting demigods or gods perhaps who were in charge of them, and it seems like they're almost kind of trying to claw their way back. You could read a lot into it, and I won't get too deep, but it's like with the killing of the mother goddess at the center of the like creation story of this lore, or her grievous wounding rather, it becomes a matter of like really, really just greedy people. Like these original pantheon of gods who are like, oh, it'll be great now. We've subdued the mother goddess. We can reshape the world as we see fit. All of them are like, oh, the rules don't apply to me. Death doesn't apply to me. I'll come back. I'll be better. It'll be exactly how I want it. All of them seem to be kind of their own flavor of control freak. It's pretty cool.
Well, as always, if you enjoy hearing about the lore, you can listen to the Into the Malediction podcast. They have a whole episode about each of the factions and kind of how their leadership works. I really like that one. But let's start talking about some of the specifics of the cards in the Sigrith deck. So we'll begin with Sigrith herself. Like all of the seekers currently in the game, she costs 10. She is a unit seeker human. She has an accuracy of 5, a power of 5 on a hit, and 3 on a graze. She has a range of 0, a speed of 5, a defense of 15, and a health of 18. And she's got 3 different abilities. First is Smite, which costs 2 action points. This unit performs a melee attack with +2 accuracy that deals 5 extra damage. Heal, which has a cost of 1 action point. An ally nearby or within range recovers 3 health, once for each ally per activation, and this provokes retaliation. And Aura of Fortitude 1, so while other allies are within 6 inches, they get +1 to their defense. Is there anything that's pretty significant about this card or makes the deck work just based off the Seeker alone?
One thing that I didn't find it out until Adepticon, and after I've been playing with it Seeker for a month, was that her my ability, because it had dealt 5 extra damage, not put 5 to your damage stat. If you do a roll nat 1 and get a critical grade, you still get that put 5 damage. So just smiting every chance you get, that's always the best move.
Yeah.
But
I just.
also,
Oh, go ahead.
oh no, you can go ahead.
I just wanted to say that like um, that heal is actually pretty cool. It's a better heal than like the priests get. Like
Yep.
your general heal is a 2, her heal is a 3. And while a lot of the time she's going to be needing to move up and fight, there will be kind of lulls in the action where that heal for me has actually come in pretty dang handy.
I have won a game because of the using that heal on Sigrith herself.
Mm-hmm.
There was one game I was playing against a Thunderstep player, and he that kept wearing on Sigrith, because if Sigrith died, he won. So it became for me just a keep Sigrith alive game. So my priest was using the action to hero, any spells I got, and then at the end of it, the very last turn, he had his Thunderstep able to cast Sigrith 3 times.
Oh man.
And Sigrith that survived with 1 AP. So so it felt so satisfying because he that could not get a hit, he that kept grading, and like that came down to like 1 dice roll, and that luck was on my side that day. But yeah, having the heal and that being able to like every little bit counts. Because you never know if that like extra 2 help or a 3 help is that going to be what keeps you alive.
Yeah. I'll also say, I guess briefly, Aura of Fortitude, it's the best faction for it. Like, most of the factions have kind of like middling defense stats, but on average, Shattered Throne already has the best. And, it just makes it even better, even more likely that you're only going to take glance damage, which can lead to her legacy triggering.
And also, what's nice about it too is they just didn't give her Tilt Wall, so
Mm-hmm.
this stacked with Tilt Wall.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so with you really want to group up with her, and she just makes it give you so much benefit for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to lead right into the legacy, we've got Andravon. It gives you a starting echo of 25, and it has 2 abilities. The first is Andravon's Protection, Whenever a source would deal damage to an ally you own, you may discard a card to prevent up to 3 of that damage from that source. And then you also get Divine Retribution. So whenever you fully prevent the damage that would be dealt by an attack against an ally you own, that ally may perform an attack against that enemy. An important thing about that is it's not a retaliation attack. And so there are some rules about retaliation that kind of limit you, like it can only be a melee. But there are a few ranged units in this faction that you can still use the ranged Divine Retribution attack. And then also, if you have the ability to make a counter attack or a riposte, you can add that to your Divine Retribution counter attack. So there are a non-zero number of situations where your opponent will attack you, do absolutely nothing, and then you're hitting them twice.
Oof.
And yeah, it
Well-
feels really gross.
Well, also too, this attack, because it's a pre-attack, can trigger counter-attack. So like if I hit my opponent, and they get a counter-attack, I then mitigate the damage, I get to hit them again, would then activate counter-attack again. And so I can that give me way more attack, and that kind of that keep forcing them to fall into my trap, and they did die so much quicker.
Yeah, well, and with this faction too, they are the faction who can often take a lot of that punishment,
Mhm.
especially if you're triggering the legacy. So it's like, okay, well, my armored revenant is fighting like your, I don't know, your blood claw raider, and it's like they've got roughly equilibrium in stats, but it's like I've got counter strike, so it's one of those things where it adds on to their already existing like spikiness essentially in a way that can be really good for pushing your advantage.
Yeah, I think just also that being able to discard to prevent damage is just a good ability. And then when you turn that around by just making an attack, it'll give you so much of an advantage. That her legacy, it really would make her so competitive and just all around uh a pretty diverse and tough secret to fight, because a lot of especially new players don't really know how to play around it.
Yeah.
And like also it's her my legacy to like a new player who I'm playing against, and a lot of them, until like they actually get into the thick of it, that realize that like how much damage I can actually prevent and then they throw back at you. Because three's a super common number, and there's a lot of stuff that even on a hit only did 3 damage. So a lot of little stuff that died very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
also,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I would just say that it's kind of important to keep in mind that, like, if you want to bully support pieces, if your opponent has like a priest or a conclave scholar or anything like that, where when they hit, they're doing 3 damage, like
Mhm.
that means like you can really shut them down. And like it's like there are other things that a lot of the time support pieces want to be doing, but at the same time, in a lot of games, just it's the way it shakes out. It's like, oh, I need this priest to take an important shot, or I need this shaman to get in there and attack because I just need that little extra bit of damage. And Sigrith can just be like, oh, this person gets nothing. Like, I'm stopping them no matter what, and it is only bad to send them in. So by denying your opponent kind of that release valve extra bit of damage, by kind of throwing their supports in, I think it really changes the structure of the game.
I think the most interesting thing to me is we talked in the Vorendal episode about his legacy turning all of his damage dealing spells into Adrenaline Rush. And in the Thundersteps episode, how you can turn basically whatever card you want in your hand into a 3-inch movement. But there's limitations on both of those. And Sigrith's Legacy, it will literally just turn any card you want into like +3 health, which a lot of the time is going to, like, even if the extra attack you get was not a factor, it can mean that they're going to have to spend an extra action point, sometimes more, to take out the unit that you've prevented the damage on. And having like a effect that's stapled to all of your cards that is always something that you're happy to do is just a very powerful thing innately. One thing that Matt wrote in our notes here is to know when to hold your cards and when to discard. Do you want to offer some thoughts on that?
Yeah. So like when you decode the code, you're not being able to use them. So you need to decide if what you're decoding is more important to be played or if preventing the damage. Because if you just prevent every attack, you're gonna run out of cards very quickly, and that's gonna put you at slight disadvantage. And sometimes, like we have a beepy options with units in the fact that while high AT, we have some way to heal and just so sometimes it's better to let the smaller hit get through, or like if you're not getting that counter attack, or if you don't need that counter attack, it's sometimes better to let them go through to better save that card to play it. Um, and this part of the gameplay I really like. It's part of the reason why I really like Sigrith. I come from a background of Card Fight Vanguard, where this is built into the rules itself, where you discard cards from your hand. So this felt very familiar, very natural to me.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta be really careful because if you burn too quickly, you can either screw yourself out for later. But if you don't block early, you might not be able to block attack later. Cause like I can block 3 now, but I might not be able to block that 7 coming toward me later.
Yeah, I'd say that like it's kind of weird to think about it like this, but I think Andravon's thing is fundamentally more of a damage thing than a damage prevention thing, because like Order has a ton of different ways to prevent damage,
Yeah.
and like don't get me wrong, that 3 damage prevention can be very very good, but it's like uh, I've heard this shopped around is like the only health point that really matters is your last one.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel like with Andravon, you really need to keep that in mind. Is it's not just a matter of preventing damage. You have a lot of options for that. A lot of times it's can I leverage this to get in and on my opponent's face and deal damage? Because I would say that is kind of one of the things that Mono Yellow isn't so great with. There's a couple of exceptions, which we'll get to, but they are slow, and the ranged options, while good, aren't super long range. So there will be times I think where you just have to be like, okay, my battle master is just gonna run just to get into there, and you're relying on Andravon to be the damage for that turn or that round.
Yeah, I like exactly. I was talking to a friend of mine who just built a Sigrid deck, and I was trying to explain that to him, particularly for the Laundriel matchup. That like you just gotta run in, and even though you're gonna take some damage from being shot at, you can prevent it or keep yourself alive or that recover the damage. You just gotta sometimes you just gotta run in.
Yeah,
Well,
I'd say that. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was going to transition, but if you have got more.
No, I think go ahead and transition because I think this next point can be made in the next section.
Okay. Well, one thing that's going to help you run in there is the terrain. And I don't think I've ever seen a Sigrith that does not use the Astarian pathways. Uh, it has the boosting keyword, so units on this terrain performing actions will get +2 to their movement stat. And this is pretty crucial because a lot of our knights have like 5 move, and that's really slow.
Yep. So it is very true, but getting that extra being able to run down because Sigrid, unlike other very defensive seekers, want to be in the front. So Sigrid's more of a shield wall moving to meet the enemy than instead of just waiting in a corner. So that having this being able to run up to the enemy, because in some matchups, like you need that to get to them as quick as possible before they get a chance to build.
I have shout out to my local Mike. I have seen him actually running Sigrith with red terrain, that does the damage. And the way he squares that circle is he just thinks that like shutting down large chunks of the board can be good for Sigrith because she
Yeah,
does want to get in there.
I can see that. And also, like, we do have some. Well, we have a flying unit, and I at Adepticon, I think it was round 2 match, which I think got streamed, but and that's on YouTube. I think Trial House Sunday, the YouTube channel that have it. My Herald got the Trapjaw chain, so I just went into my opponent's red terrain, and I just pulled all his unit. I pulled a couple of his units into his terrain, killing them. Um, so I can see that being a fun one, but yeah, the Ethereal pathway is just like I think for like most seekers, I think it's by far the most universal terrain piece, and I think any seeker is gonna be okay taking it.
Yeah, I think we're just kind of at a state in the game where blue and yellow terrain are just really, really dominant. They're really good
Mm.
in like so many different situations. And it's
Well,
not that you can't make good use of the other ones, but I
yeah,
don't know, man. Yellow's so good
the,
with Sigrith.
yeah, that's more universal. While the other ones require a little bit more build around.
Yeah.
Right. Like everyone's going to be happy to save a few dollars on their spells or to go a
Mm.
little bit faster, but like why play Deathshroud Mire if you don't have ambush units?
Yep.
Any other points on the terrain or the secret or legacy cards specifically?
I do like with the terrain that did the middle piece and one of the small pieces do do a good job of blocking line of sight with some windows to do that. So I found that been for games where I do need the turtle, I found those to be really good terrain pieces to like set up top and that have my crossbowmen just take full advantage and just be
Mm.
safe.
I guess speaking of that, is there any like whenever you're placing terrain at the beginning of the game or even placing husks, are there any things that you like to do to help set up the map or is it
Yeah.
just kind of
Um
situational?
No, like I am very much. I have a default layout for my terrain, and people who played a few games with me can see it. Basically, my goal is to try to have one of my terrain piece add close to the middle of each side of the board. Um, so all my pieces I put on the edge of the map, and basically try to make it so that there basically you have speed boost to get you around the map. I don't worry so much about the middle because like if I'm running toward the middle, someone immediately me. So it no so I just try to do like one big circle with my terrain pieces if I can.
Mm.
That's interesting. I know with my Starcast halls, I've been like you can put them in like a triangle to make it so that at any deployment zone you can always get to at least one
Mhm.
piece. But I haven't really considered like usually that bleeds into the middle at some point, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone not just like take their biggest terrain piece and just jam it in the middle of the board. So it's really interesting to hear the perspective of someone who wants to fight or like keep their play area towards the edges.
Yeah, I just found like especially with like most people how they place the hut. Like you normally will get most of the hut are gonna be around the edges. So that's where a lot of the fight tend to happen. Other than like if you just have one in the middle. But if the main fight in the middle, your opponent is meeting you there, so you don't necessarily need to move that quickly.
Hmm.
So it's really just trying to get around the team I found to be the best.
Yeah, that
Mm.
makes perfect sense to me. Well, let's kind of move on and we'll talk about some general strategy tips. So these are the things that the deck just kind of wants to do. So, for example, a Thundersteps wants to get in and charge and fight. A Londriel wants to sit in the back and camp in a corner. Where does Sigrith fall on that scale? And
I
what are some things that you employ when you're playing a game?
Yeah, so I found Sigrith to be a little bit flexible. Foto want the unit to be together, but I found that like in some matchup, like if I'm playing a Thunderstep player, I'm just setting up in my deployment zone. I know those matches I'm not gonna get more than like 6 inches from my deployment zone. But like when I'm facing a Laundry L player, I'm running across the board. So depending on who I'm playing, it's either gonna be defensive or aggressive. But no matter what, I try to keep my unit close together to get synergy with them.
Yeah, a lot of your things, like your heal and your prey, are based on a 6-inch range from the priest, and then you've got like the shield wall and the aura of fortitude that also have similar ranges. So that makes sense to keep everybody together and have a little defensive ball. Whenever you're having to charge in, is there a specific order of what you're wanting to send stuff in, or does it not really matter that much?
It kind of depends on the situation. Like if I happen to have Lopgall out, or Chicken Man, if people call him, he's going in for it. I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fan of it, but I am very much a turn one. I'm playing Sigrith. I'm very much. I did like the thematic of the leader leading the troop from the front line. So I'm always trying to get her into the fight, or I'm using her as a intimidation to have the opponent. Because sometimes people like see Sigrith. I'm like, I'm not dealing with Sigrith. I'm gonna go over here to the other unit, and then my goal is to get Sigrith there. Um,
Yeah,
but
that makes sense.
yeah.
Speaking of Chicken Man, I really hate this guy. My fiance, she's played like 7 or 8 games with me now, and she really likes Sigrith. And like 6 of those games, she's gotten Rogarth out on turn 1, and he always just charges up, and he sends his attacks, and then he like kills 1 or 2 of my units, and then by the time that he's actually close to dead, he just runs away. And it's the most like, and she's not even like a board gamer or
Mhm.
like a super competitive person, but the fact that like her first game plays the guy on turn 1 and like figured out that that's the play style, and it's so annoying. I
He
cannot stand him.
he's so good. Yeah, and if you can get him on turn one, that gives you a lot of advantage. And the Night King about Sigrid is since he is monocolor, you can normally get Sigrid, Lockall, and a priest or like another cheap unit out turn one, and then you're in a really good spot. And
Yeah,
like no.
I just wanted to say I agree with almost all that. Um, I think she is like I think more balanced, as you said, more flexible. I said she's kind of closest to Vorendal in playstyle, and that they can both kind of switch from attack and defense as needed. I think that more than Vorendal, though, she's kind of like she like she's almost like a she crouches down and then she springs.
Yep.
Like a lot of the early game for me is getting everything into position because we are slow. We don't have a ton of ranged options, and you're gonna have to put something out that's gonna get wailed on before you can really counterpunch. You're not gonna get the first hit in most of the time, and a lot of time you're not gonna be able to pressure. You're kind of she can be a more defensive faction, but uh, generally in games there's somebody who's playing the aggro role and somebody who's playing the more control role. And while Sigrith does have some control through like her damage reduction, I feel like a lot of the time it's the yellow player who's going to have to kind of blink first and be like, okay, I've got enough of my ducks in a row, I'm going in. And you do have a lot of good options to prepare for that. Like the priests can pray you up a lot of extra echo to use. But at a certain point, I think she does kind of need to direct her army to just get up in there and fight.
Yep.
So it's interesting because I think she plays pretty defensively early and then gets more aggressive as the game goes on.
Yeah, but you want to be aggressive with Sigrith because, as we were talking about with decoding hand, there's not a lot of way to draw your hand back. Eventually, you get toward the end around like turn 4 and 5, and you have no cards in hand. You just have your units on the board, and you just want to help that your unit on the board all just in a better position and better state than your opponent, and then you just take advantage of that. Because like early game you want to be defensive, and then like after about starting turn 3 and beyond, that's when you really need to be aggressive in most games, and you want to use the fact that your units are probably healthier and maybe hopefully at this point outnumbering your opponent, and they're taking full advantage of that.
Yeah, at some point they are just going to have enough resources to start dropping your units, and it's kind of interesting because you look at them like, oh, they're slow and they heal. That means they want to play the long game, and that can be true sometimes. There's going to be games where it's like, I'm just going to spend a couple of rounds just praying until I have enough resources, but you kind of need to get in there while you do have that resource advantage, because if your opponent keeps shooting at you, you're going to run out of cards.
Yeah, I feel like Sigrith is like, I think a trading card game term in mid range where you're not gonna win super quick, but you also don't want the game to go long. Like you want to try to end it by turn 5, and you don't want to go too far past turn 5 if you can help it.
Mm-hmm.
It really is interesting because a lot of the discourse that I've heard online is that she's very stally and slow, and that's just boring gameplay. But I've never gotten that vibe in the games that I've played against her, because I mean she does want to get in there quickly, and she runs out of resources. Her primary resources being those cards in her hand. Um, but like if she can do enough damage to your opponent's board state before she starts worrying about those resources, then it can put, like, I mean, that's the situation you want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other tips or strategy points that you guys want to talk about?
I think we covered her main game plan is kind of,
Yeah.
you got to build up and then into a big push. Um, I once again though, like, shout out to Rogar the Breaker, because he's kind of interesting in that he breaks a lot of the rules, mostly their mobility rule. He's like your one, like, oh well, actually, you know, the rest of my army is going to hide back here or slowly walk its way up the board, but no, he's going to jump down your throat. He's going to kill more to like top a round two. That's his job.
Yeah, my advice for my basic advice for her is like be flexible, and then when in doubt, just be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And just after a while, you kind of learn like what are your important pieces and like what ones you need to protect. Um, and like the T give you enough flexibility to adapt, and then kind of like after a while, you kind of learn the vibe.
Yeah. And we'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about a little bit later in the episode some of the matchups where you'll want to employ specific game plans. But we can get into that a little bit later. So I guess for now, let's talk about some specific cards. So we've divided them up between basic, elite, and unique cards. And Matt has selected one card for each category, and then us as hosts have also selected some cards for each category. We're going to start things off by talking about Matt's choice for the basic, which I feel like this is pretty obvious, but it's the Valkyrus Priest. So it is a 4-cost basic unit. It is a human. It's got an accuracy of 1, a power of 3 on a hit, and 1 on a graze. It's got a range of 6, a speed of 6, a defense of 11, and a health of 8. And we have 2 abilities. We've got Heal 2 for 1 action point. An ally nearby or within range recovers 2 health, once for each ally per activation, and this provokes retaliation. And then we've got Prey 3 for 1 action point. For each other ally you own within 6 inches, gain 1 echo, up to 3 echo per activation, and this provokes retaliation as well. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about why Priest is so good?
Yeah, the Prey is so good because it just gives you more resources. So it's allowing you to build up quicker. It giving you that, like, you can focus on spending more echo on units, and then during the actual activation, you can use it to get the echo needed to cast belt. So
Yup.
and the fact again, like, you want to be in a group, so your units most of the time all going to be fairly close together. So it's very easy to get the max free echo from only using 1 AP. And then if you have more of these, which you should, every older player should be running a full plate of these, no matter which seeker you're running. It basically so much echo that it gets to the point that late game you do not have to worry about echo. Like most games I have with them, I spend about like 1 or 2 turns actually praying, and then the rest of the time either using their healed or having them attack.
They're really good. They're so flexible. Yeah, I think there is gonna be kind of a point, like I mentioned, like you're gonna want to build up a resource advantage early, and if you do that, honestly, they're not bad for just they have a gun, which is not like a given in this game. If you're to the point where like, okay, I don't have a ton of cards because I'm Sigrith and I'm spending some of them on my legacy. I don't think I'm probably going to have to worry about Echo for the foreseeable future. You just switch them over to healing people and occasionally popping a shot off because there can be 2 big gnarly units fighting and they can just sit there at 6 inches and they can, like, even if it's just 2 damage, that's 2 more damage on whatever your big guy's fighting too.
Like I've won games that because I just needed to do that one last attack, and they're there to come in and shoot from range.
Exactly, and this is what I was talking about when I said that, like, Andravos kind of turns that off for your opponent a lot of the time. They won't have access to that extra little bit of support piece damage because of the the damage mitigation being like, oh, you hit me for 3, well, it's all gone. So yeah, the priests are great, absolutely, ubiquitous pick.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any argument. For our basic card, we've got one of the newer ones from the Grisa deck. So this is the Brighthold Custodian. It's a 5-cost unit human. Has an accuracy of 2, a power of 4 on a hit, 2 on a graze, a range of 0, speed of 6, defense of 11, health of 10. And it's got Distract. Whenever a hit would be scored against this unit or a nearby ally, you may exhaust this card. If you do, that hit becomes a critical graze instead. And it's got Riposte, so whenever a graze is scored against this unit, it may retaliate after the damage resolves. So, Ethan, you picked this card because it says critical graze on it, right? We're just
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely. So when I first saw this guy, I was pretty underwhelmed looking at him on paper. But he's a menace. He's great. His whole game plan is he's gonna. I would say that he is great grouping up with other units because somebody goes in and they're like, oh wow, I got a crit hit, I got a 20 against Sigrith, eat 9 damage, and this guy's like, no, 1 damage. And while giving up activations can be rough in this game, there's no beating that. You can take game-changing, game-swinging damage and just say, I'm not interested. It's really good. In addition, I think that they're actually very good by their lonesome. They're pretty fast, especially for a yellow unit. And if you have to send somebody out far afield to grab a relic, I think this is the man for the job. And that's because if your opponent like counters and sends out kind of like a middling unit to go fight him mano a mano, I think he's winning those engagements. And I think he's winning those engagements without activating. Because if they send something roughly equal to him, and they're both basically fighting over a relic, your opponent's going to be activating and hitting you, and every time they miss, you're just going to get a free attack on them. And his defense isn't amazing, but those misses are going to happen most games. And what's more, if they get hit on you, you can say no, and I hit you back, and I spend a card for Andravos and hit you again. So they're a little resource intensive sometimes, but with 4 damage on a hit, these guys are like really gnarly when you're just picking on stuff your own size. I think they will match and beat a lot of things that will be sent against them to like contest a relic. I have 3 of them in my main Sigrith deck. I think they're amazing for damage mitigation, and they're pretty scary.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of them. I'm kind of sad that I didn't start using them until after Adepticon because I can get that might have changed the outcome of Adepticon if I had them before. And there's not a petty reason why I didn't have them because I didn't have them modeled ready in time, and I wanted to only play with fully painted models at Adepticon.
Well, I understand that. I understand wanting to do that. Real quick, I need to feed my cats. Give me just a moment.
Okay. While he's feeding his cats, I think that one of the really interesting things about this is that we talked during the Vorndal episode about how the persist ability is like better than it seems on paper, and I think that distract is kind of in a similar vein. I Most of the time, whenever you're activating your unit or exhausting your unit without actually activating it, um, there's like a intrinsic negative to that because you don't get your 2 action points. But I think that the fact that this can be used on any nearby ally, and it's going to turn whatever damage attack they have into just one single damage. That's going to force them to use more action points than you're giving up. For example, if this is like a Thunder Steps and they've just hit you for like 8 damage or something, and you've made it 1, that's going to be another like 2 action points that they're going to have to put into killing whatever unit you just distracted. So it's just another way of like keeping your units like keeping that I guess that resource parity in your favor.
Yeah,
Um,
the
okay.
fact it the fact that that's a good ability, and I have opponents get actually mad when I've used it on them the first time to be like, wait, what does it do? Um, and I've had it like mentioned Thunderstep. I had Thunderstep crit on units that I did like used it cracked, and my opponent get so mad.
Yeah. That's got to be the worst feeling because like that's his whole like that's 1/3 of his character card is you get to do extra stuff on a critical hit.
hmm And then the fact that it makes it 1 damage, so then you just discard that card, and that's a free attack.
Yep.
And it just puts you in such a better spot.
Absolutely.
They
All
even
right.
have
Well,
like
let's.
I think they have 10 health too, so they're a little sturdier than you might
Mm,
think at first glance.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like
the only downside is that the 11 defense is kind of on the lower side, and you the t- they benefit a lot from being near a tier wall unit or getting that extra defense, so you can potentially get more of the repose up. Because right
yeah,
now 11 is like basically a 50-50 shot to be hit.
yeah, and I'd say that like another great example of why you should group them up when you can. Even though this guy can be good by himself, if you need to have somebody by himself, everything in yellow is just that much better when they're together.
Yep. All right. So we'll move on to our elite choices. So Matt has selected the Warfront Commander. This is a 6-cost unit human. He has an accuracy of 2, a power of 4 on a hit and 2 on a graze, a range of 0, a speed of 6, a defense of 13, and a health of 12. And he's got Battle Cry for 1 action point. An ally you own of this unit's rank or lower and within 6 inches performs an attack or a move once for each ally per activation. And then he's also got Inspire 2. So while other allies are within 6 inches, they're going to get +2 to their accuracy. I love Battlecry so much. It feels so like it's just fun to use it and like have a ranged unit or something move up, and then it can use two attacks. Or in this case, because you've got the crossbowmen that can only do one ranged attack per activation, you can use Battlecry to still allow them to get multiple attacks in a round. But there's so much utility with that ability.
It's
Why don't you
so
tell us a
good.
little bit more?
Yeah, and you mentioned the big one, the crossbowmen. So getting multiple attack up with them in a round, it's really helpful. But also with the talking about the Gatolites, you know, they're not getting their action point because we're adopting them. So this is a good way for them to get those attacks in. And the fact that he is elite, also you can use him on the True Tone of Dem powers. So there's a lot of good units that you can use the battle cry for. And the only other faction that have battle cry right now is Primal Blood, and the Diamond is a basic. So we just have much more choices we can use it on.
Yeah, I think the fact that it is the game's only silver battle cry is insane.
Mm.
Like, I think it's kind of mitigated by. I do think, like, at least for right now, yellow actually doesn't have a ton of silvers that I think are all that good. They're not bad, but they don't have like kind of some of the crazy silvers that other factions do. But still, just like the fact that you can tell, you can get a. It fixes so many movement options too, especially for units like the Battlemaster, where they have onslaught, and it's like, well, you're gonna have to charge him in this round. It's like, nope, he walks in because that guy yelled at him, and now he's gonna onslaught.
Also, the Empire too, it's so good.
Oh
Especially like
yeah,
you put the guy next to Sigrith. Sigrith might hit bakery that's a guaranteed hit at that point.
yup. It's like practically you're never gonna miss with most of the stuff in yellow. If it's like, oh, I'm rocking a +6, it's like, oh well, that'll do it.
Also, it's a trade up that Canto Volendale aura.
Mhm.
So if you have him within allied within tickets and vulnerable, it negates his debuff. So with it pretty nice to be able to negate a secret ability on just a elite unit.
Two of them go in every permutation of my Sigrith deck, like
Oh,
easy.
I think pretty much any older gag benefit from having them. They all, yeah, they're very versatile. They're very much warp. You can very much get your money's warp out of them.
Mhm. And honestly, push comes to shove, they're not that bad in a fight. It's not what they're built for, but they do 4-2, and they have like a +3, I think. So
+2.
+2, okay, and that's not bad. Like bombs away, If you really do need to use them for that, they're not a bad choice.
Also, like defense 13 and 12 help. So, like, yeah, they're going to take a few hits.
Yeah, and I'd also say that like just because they're engaged, the other insane thing about Battle Cry or War Cry, I forget which one it is, the yelling ability, the ability where you scream, is it doesn't provoke retaliation. So you can be in a like even closing with this guy doesn't actually like directly harm him in the way it does a priest. A priest can't pray or heal without getting slapped if they're engaged. But this guy, like, he's still gonna have his two crossbow buddies shoot you. It doesn't matter if he's fighting you.
Um, but also kind of off subject, but you see the guy dying in so many other stuff. There's a dead Warfront commander on Sigrith base. I'm pretty sure the guy Thunderstep is stomping on his model is a Warfront
Oh,
commander. There's like a couple of cards where I think they're also being attacked.
aw. Well, if you'd notice, in his flavor text, it's from the perspective of like a red like leader, and he's saying, "Go for these guys. They make everybody around them way more damaging and dangerous. Kill them first."
Yeah.
So maybe that's just reflecting that they're high priority targets.
Yep.
I will never not see the dead ones on the basis now. That's so tragic. All right. Well, let's move on to our next our next elite card. Ethan has selected the Rush of Salvation. So this is
Yeah.
a 3-cost spell swift, and it's also from the Grisa deck. As an opponent declares an attack against an ally, another ally may perform a move with twice its move stat, as long as it finishes that action nearby the defender. If it does, it absorbs the damage that would be dealt to the defender.
So this spell is interesting. It wasn't in my deck up until very recently. I just started messing around with it because I saw other people getting a lot of use out of it, and it's multi-layered. So no disrespect to the silver units for yellow. Like I think the Battle Master and the True Stone Exemplar are both really solid, chunky units. In fact, I would say this spell is best used on units like them a lot of the time. But what this spell does is it doesn't just block damage and redirect it. It's also a movement spell, and I think that's actually the more important part because you're going to throw your guy up. Maybe it's a knight or something. Somebody who's durable but kind of disposable. He whips around the corner, and oh no, there's a barrow defiler or something, and he's going to come smash his face in. And it's like, okay, he's got 3 health left. This would kill him. He gets hit, and it's like, okay, well, now your battle master gets a free move, takes some damage, which he's going to be able to deal with, and then he is in the perfect position once again to onslaught. And it's one of those things where yellow does not have a ton of movement options. This is one of them. And it does require your opponent to do something, which means it can be kind of finicky. But you're going to get shot at. You're going to get stabbed at, It's pretty reliable in that way. So you can generally rely on that and bank off of it and rocket your own guys up the board with it.
I love the card. It was a card I would debating on not being my pick. But the downside is it's not. It kind of situational.
Mm-hmm.
You need to set up for it, and there've been a couple of games where like my unit was slightly too far apart for me to activate it. But I do love the card, especially when I can use it to get Sigrith into the fight, and the Night King it too that it twice its movement. So if my unit is standing on the yellow terrain, they
only
get
gets
that
better.
bonus twice.
Yup.
So it's so good, and like you said, it mostly that to get unit into the fight, and you group up what gives you more benefit, and then you have them in a decent position. The only downside, what I think that is probably gonna show up in the next FAQ, and I got confirmation from Nikki, one of the game developers, on how this worked, is you cannot trigger your legacy on an attack you used it. So the damage have to be absorbed by the person.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's like if somebody shoots an unmake at you and you redirect it to your Gateway Guardian. It's like the Gateway Guardian still takes the damage because he's not taking the spell; he's taking the damage from the spell.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I know there was some confusion because they happen in different phases, but yeah. But yeah, it's such a good call. And again, it's a Watchfront commander being protected by a herald because everyone's trying to kill them.
Yep.
All right, well, we can move on to our unique choices now. Matt's pick is the Echo of Sarstan. So this is a 3-cost spell swift. If an ally would suffer damage from an attack, search your deck for a basic or elite spell and reveal it. Add it to your hand, shuffle your deck, and play the revealed spell without spending Echo. I don't know what it was about this first expansion. Like they printed this and Rippling Potential in effectively the same set. And this is a game that's not supposed to have a whole lot of card advantage. And then here's these 2 extremely powerful tutor cards. But Echo has some really interesting timing stuff. And the fact that it's a Swift, but it doesn't require you to tutor up a Swift. So why don't you tell me about how that works and some interesting combos?
Yeah. So I like it because depending on the situation, like I could use it to cast a heal, or I could use it to do visit command and let attack, get a pre-attack in. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with it. I think the only card in my deck I can't use is what the Salvation, because that requires before the attack. But it basically that if you need a Pacific King but the situation, it gives you what you need. And then also you can play this card, resolve it, And then you can use your legacy to discard a card to prevent the damage afterwards. So it's very much like just a free gimme.
Yep.
It,
Yep. Yep.
it's too perfectible. Also, I will not be surprised if we later see this guy on the card as either a unit or a seeker. I feel like we're going to see him, or very much someone in this priestly order. Oh, I guess it's like a monk. I have to double check the law. But I would not be surprised if we see more of these people.
Blink twice if this is a subtle spoiler.
No, no,
um,
I would.
yeah. I think that like it's not ideal, but one of the things that I really like in theory is the fact that you could play this and then search up convoke, and then you could convoke at swift speed, and
Yep.
then just like drop a guy there that they weren't expecting. Like I haven't played too much Sigrith myself, but I just have a copy of Convoke in the deck, just like in case it ends up lining up. Like you just need one there, and you don't always play it, but sometimes it'll come up, and I think that it's such an interesting little gimmick.
Well, and also too, one thing nice about Sigrith, we talked about the legacy. You can have like those one-up cards that are very situational because if you don't need them for the ability, you can just call them to prevent damage.
Yeah.
So
Literally,
they
worst case scenario, it's the same as any other card in your deck, or you just
Yep.
like bid it to force them to discard a card as well.
So good.
Any other points for the Echo of Sarston?
Not really. I think you covered why it's good and why it's like any other spell you need. It's good for same reasons. I think it's a little worse than Rippling Potential, but that's not saying much.
I will agree with you on that. It's a little bit worse because Rippling Potential gives you 2 cards, while it only gives you 1 you have to use in that moment.
Mhm.
And this one, your ally would have to suffer damage from an attack. So you can't use it prevent damage from a spell. You can't use it from if they take damage from a terrain, and you can't use it on your turn unless they get hit by like a counter attack.
Well, Ethan, I think I need a little bit of an explanation here. So, for his unique, he wrote down the Decree of Valkaris, which I'm more than happy to read. But then he wrote in a little subline, the old switcheroo with golds. So, what is
Yes.
your meaning here?
My meaning is that if you put down 1 gold and then your opponent spends a bunch of resources whittling it down to like 3 health, and then you play this and you put down the other gold you have, or even just a silver, it's really, really annoying.
Okay.
All right.
Then let me read this off real fast. So,
Okay.
Decree of Valkaris is a 6-cost spell channel. You return a non-seeker ally you own to your hand and deploy another unit of the same rank or lower in its place without spending Echo. The deployed unit equips any attachments the returned unit had. I just wanted to make sure that the old switcheroo wasn't that, like, this is the bad one and you were, like, wanting to highlight all of the other gold cards.
No. It's good to briefly mention the units, I guess, in the context of this card. But no, it's an excellent card. That it is my genuine pick.
Okay. All right, we'll talk about it.
So I've had several games, most notably against Zog, sorry Zog, where like I'll get lucky. Like that's kind of the qualifier for this card is you're going to need some good unit draws, and that's not always the case. You can do this with silvers, it's best with golds. Sometimes you just don't get the stuff you need. But hey, as we just said, it's a Sigrith deck. If push comes to shove, you could just use it to block damage. It's still good for that. But I have had multiple games where I get 2 gold units because I have all 3 of them in my deck. And that's not always great because you see that and you're like, well, I'll probably have to bid one of these. It'll make a decent bid. But a lot of the time, you're not going to be able to put like an 8 and a 9 down on the board, at least not in a timely manner. But with this card, I've had games where I'll often put out Rogar first. Rogar, he'll run up the board, he'll kill something, he'll start fighting, and he'll start to get worn down because he's a big juicy target. Often he has a relic on him, and he's prime opportunity. If you can kill him, you can score a ton of points. And my opponent will spend like an entire round just wailing on him, getting him down to like 2 health. And then at the end of the round, I play this and I replace him with the Herald of Salvation. And it's basically like I've won games just based on that. It's insane. Being like, hey, well, guess what? There's somebody here who's almost as strong as this guy. They're at full health. If he had a relic or an item, they have it now, and they're refreshed. Even if you kind of have to downgrade, and it's like, well, Rogar's going to go home, and I'm going to play this Battle Master instead. That's still like a fresh, chunky unit that you've just thrown out onto the board at the last second, protecting your echo value from your previous guy. It's really, really good.
Matt, do you play Decree of Valkyros?
I don't. I
Okay.
see the value of it. It is a really good card. I think it just doesn't match my play style with Sigrith. I ran it for a while, and I did was not coming up with a lot of opportunity to use it. And I did when I cook it out and twist it with other stuff. I found my deck is running a little bit more consistently without it. Um, so it definitely is a really good card, and I definitely think if you can get it off, it is definitely a game changer. But it just didn't match my play style. I don't, but like I'm not saying don't use it. I'm very much saying like if this card matches your play style and you are getting it off, wonderful for you. Like it you can do a lot with it, and it definitely I think like on paper this is a really good card. It's just very situational, and sometimes when you just need, I just needed my deck space for other stuff that I know I could get off more consistently.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Yeah.
I would say that like in a Sigrith deck, I'm just not as scared of inconsistency because of how her legacy works.
Yeah, it's difficult to have a bad card.
Oh,
Uh,
well, another thing too is like this is taking 2 cards from your hand when like a lot of times we'll like kind of want every card in my hand, or in some matchup I'm trying to actually get rid of all the cards in my hand um to do enforce balance.
Mm.
Um so I just I just kind of found it at
yeah. I've got a deck built for every seeker currently in the game, and I've tried, just like the collectionist part of me has tried to spread all of the gold cards out just to like have them represented. And this one is the only one that I haven't been able to take out of my like extra cards box. I see the use, but it's expensive to me for what it does, and like you said, like you've got to have the other unit there in your hand ready to go. But I do think that you know, like every faction has one of those 5 or 6 cost, like super powerful channels that's going to warp the game, and if you can get Decree of Valkyros off, it's going to warp the game. Um, Matt, you mentioned enforce balance, and this is one that comes up in a lot of discussion, so I want to highlight it real quick. It's a 3-cost spell swift, and it says that an opponent must discard 1 card at a time until they have the same number of cards in hand as you. Um, this is very, very good in Sigrith because, as it turns out, when you have a legacy ability that wants you to discard cards, you end up not having very many cards, and a lot of characters in this game would like to have cards in their hand to play. Um, I feel like Enforce Balance is one of those cards where if you can get it off to make them discard, down to 1 or 0 cards within the first couple of turns of the game, it's probably going to swing the win rate very much in your favor. Is
yeah.
there any other points on it, or is it just like that's that?
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta kind of like know the matchup and like what you can get the best of. Like I found anything any when you're playing against a spell heavy deck, that it you want to try to get it off quickly to get the maximum effect of it. And if you time it right, when you like know they don't have enough echo, or like you're pretty sure they don't have a way to counter it, it can just very much it makes it so it what's on the board is what mattered. And and a lot of times most of all units do pretty well when it's just on the board and no belts.
Yeah, Sigrith is all about what's on the board being what
Mhm.
matters. And the last thing that I'll add onto it is that because it's a Swift, there are so many timing windows that you can play it. And I feel like there's very few times where you don't want to just do it like as soon as the activation phase begins. But like there are some interesting things that could happen. Um, yeah, just because it is a Swift. But let's talk about some relics now. So as always, the boots are just going to be an honorable mention. Every single seeker in the game wants to have boots on them or one of their units, so we just put it in the honorable mentions. We don't talk about it any further. Some of the other honorable mentions that we've got are the Guardian's Aegis and the Ring of Time. However, we're just going to talk about our top 3 list. And starting in the 3rd place, Matt put down either Reaper's Edge or Fang of the Damned. We've talked a lot about Reaper's Edge on this podcast, so let's talk a bit about the Fang of the Damned. This is a relic that says the unit gains once during this unit's activation, it may suffer 3 damage to perform a free attack. If this attack scores a hit, this unit recovers 5 health. So why are you taking the Fang of the Damned over other relic options?
Well, especially like on Sigrith gets in to Smite, and the Smite is very powerful, but it might not necessarily one-shot a lot of stuff. But doing a Smite and then doing Fang of the Damn right after, if both hit, you are doing at least 15 damage, and that's gonna kill most of the units in the game. So it's just a really good combination. And also, if you do hit, with it very likely with Sigrith, you're healing. So they're giving you that extra 2 HP, which is going to help keep your units alive in the fight longer.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Vengeance and Retribution, which is debuting on our podcast. So this is a relic that says this unit gains counterattack. Whenever a hit is scored against this unit, it may retaliate after the damage resolves. And Riposte. Whenever a graze is scored against this unit, it may retaliate after the damage resolves. So no matter what, you're swinging back.
Yup.
Again, we talked about it worked with the legacy. So it basically on any of your units, it pretty much guaranteeing to attack back. This
Yeah.
is the one that when Lucio put out like a little learn to play the secrets. This is the one they most recommended for Sigrith, and it's a good one. I don't think it's the best choice all the time, but it's very useful to have on your unit, and you can do a lot of damage with it.
I think it's definitely the most like flashy pick.
Yeah.
Like it's the one that you equip it and your opponent just has to sigh a little bit because they know what's coming. All right, and then our number 1 relic, the one I assume that you would go for the most, is the Everkeep Reliquary. This is the first time that we've had it up so high. It gives the equipped unit accuracy +2, defense +2, and at any time during the action phase, this unit may claim and equip a relic from the relic display. If it does, return the Everkeep Reliquary to the bottom of the relic deck.
I think that it hand down the best relic in the game, and that I think should also be an honorary mention for every seeker. That the fact you can twit open you up to so many strategies so you can figure out what you need when you need it. But also, like, just by itself, the 2 accuracy and the 2 defense work very well. Also, you put it on Sigrith, it's possible to get Sigrith defense to 20. Because you have this, you have a unit with Tilt Wall too, and then you put the Tilt equipment on Sigrith. Sigrith defense is 20. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's very ridiculous.
And then also with the accuracy too, that's stacked with the smite accuracy, put 2 accuracy. So her smite is now it put 9 to hit. And then if you happen to have a Wasp on commander, that's a put 11 to hit on her smite. So that's basically a guaranteed hit on the smite. But also the Twitteroo, because it said at any point during the activation, it gives you so much flexibility. So you go, you make an attack with it, and then after the attack hit, but before damage, you can drop it out with Reaper's Edge. Or after the attack, you just drop it out with Fang of the Dam to give you another attack.
Yeah, the at any time timing window is it's so much fun. Like because there are so many instances in a game that qualify as at any time. And I think that like specifically switching it out with Reaper's Edge is the most exciting one because you get the accuracy and you get the damage buff. But there's definitely some really cool things, and honestly, even just having the Everkeep Reliquary there because it's the best of the options on a pretty poor relic display, and then when something else comes up later, switching into something that's more interesting. Like that's probably the worst case scenario, and it's still really good.
Yup.
And
Oh, go ahead.
I won game because like last turn I'll drop it out with like Ring of Time, and I'll cast a spell from one of the Discord. Like I won a game because I cook at one of my opponent's telekinesis belt, and I used that against him to curl off the rat tuck to make me able to get it. It's just so
That's
good, and it makes it so much harder for your opponent to plan around and see all your options.
Yeah. All right. Well, any other final points on relics?
Nope, I think honestly, you can kind of see across the 4 episodes so far that there's going to be standouts, a couple for every seeker, but a lot of them are just like the same good ones, you know.
Mm-hmm. I do like that we've got Vengeance and Retribution up there so high, and Everkeep Reliquary. I think it's been an honorable mention before, but this is the first time that it's made it into the top 3.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, let's talk about some good matchups and some bad matchups. So, starting with the good, whenever you sit down and your opponent flips over their Seeker and reveals their deck list, what are you generally happy to see?
Victory, Vondor, and Thundertap, I think, are like the 2 simplest methods. Though like they can do some damage, but like they're pretty easy to play around. Polymorph, if the player if it's not a good polymorph player, or count it if it's not a good counted player. Someone new that don't fully know how to utilize those secrets are very easy pickings.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. Um, whenever you're like in playing against a matchup that you feel favored in, well, so like you mentioned 2 characters that also like to be aggressive, Thundersteps particularly. So that's one of the ones where you sit back towards your deployment zone. You just
Yeah.
grab a husk or 2 and wait for them to come and do the dirty work for you, basically. Is there any other like tips to maintain your good win rate into those characters?
But Thundertap, I recommend staying close to your deployment zone if you can. Most of my matchup with Thundertap does involve Sigrith dying, normally due to Sigrith that might Thundertap, and then I get hit with Retribution. So you're gonna replay Sigrith, and you're gonna want to get her into the action really quickly again.
That's interesting. Like having a strategy that kind of accounts for the seeker dying, but that not being the end of the game, and
Mhm.
them being the thing you can keep bringing back.
And then also because they're gonna be up in your fate by being close to your deployment zone, it allows you to reinforce in your deployment zone and getting up into combat quicker. Like that match I mentioned earlier at Adepticon, I played against a Thunderstep player round 2. If you watch that match on YouTube, I am within ticked into my deployment zone for the whole game. I moved up, I grabbed a hut, and my unit did never left that area.
Yeah, as a Polynor player, I can
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
But the
Yeah.
opposite to it, Laundriel, it whenever I'm playing against them, that straight up you just gotta run and gun it. Like Palmore, you want to just get as close as possible, and you want to be the aggressive. So you basically want to play like a Thunderstep player and charging in and beating down the low level unit before they have a chance to really build up the defenses.
Yeah.
Yeah, real fast. If you want to watch that game on YouTube, Sunday Slaughter did a live stream of all of the games at Adepticon, so go check him out on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's our quick shout out. So you mentioned Londril and Polynor. When you're having to run up. Historically, Londril has been one of the poorer matchups for the characters that we've talked about. What are the ones that you feel like are a struggle for Sigrith?
So I go and count it, but typically, if someone knows how to actually play Storm, Sigrid super struggled. I think it probably one of the big what matchups. The meatball, Leanna,
Yeah.
she's also a tough one. Um, so the Storm one just attacked so much, and then also they did have I go particularly have a lot of damage to AoE, and AoE is the bane of Sigrith because the legacy only triggered um per damage sort. So when you have cooking and attacking multiple units, you can only protect one unit. And then a couple of weeks ago I played against Nick at Upkeep Games. He was playing Igor, and he beat me in round 2 or 3 because one activation, he had a Fret Ripper that blew up. So that did 4 damage to most of
Yeah.
the top. Then the Igor triggered Corpse Frozen, which he then blew up a Turok Beat that did 3 damage to a bunch of my units. And then his very next activation, he did Catechism Brat.
Yup.
And he killed 3 crossbowmen, 1 Cathode, a Watchbot commander, and a priest. And that is 26 points.
Wow.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's worth saying that like AoE damage is not very common in this game, but when it shows up, it is a problem for Sigrith because
Yep.
she does like to have everything bunched up.
Yep. So for Igor, it's like the only seeker that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna spread my stuff out a little bit. But yeah, I think right now Igor is probably the worst matchup for Sigrid.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to bring up, so at Adepticon, there was a whole lot of Sigrith and there was a whole lot of Londriel. Um, specifically, I guess, about the mirror match, how do you approach that?
So the mirror mat at top, it basically Sigrid it worked at a aggressor than he is at defense. So if you can not be the aggressor in the matchup, you have a better chance. But it kind of just like I said, that knowing which units have a better matchup and that knowing when to hold your belt and timing. I think one of the things that hurt me at the mirror match at Adepticon was I decided to keep one of my units in my hand instead of deploying them, and then I got hit with enforced balance. Um, so it's one of those things that I'm like, well, so that's all that coming.
Mm.
So, and also that being more careful. So I think your range unit are the way to go. So you want your crossbowmen out pinging damage, because if you're pinging a melee unit from that range, they won't be retaliating. Ranged units are really good against Sigrith. There's not a ton in the game right now, unless you're brew, but just having that whale down with the range makes a big difference.
Yeah. I'd say like you also do kind of want to be like, I don't know how to put it, beating the drum. Like
Yeah.
all of her damage reduction stuff is annoying, but if you can just make her discard a couple cards every round just passively, you're going to keep her from rolling you up. Because I think if you don't like make her proc her stuff, she's going to snowball and it's going to start to really hurt. So I think a good way to counter her is to keep up the pressure, even if it's just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, because every
Um,
attack mitigated it burning a cold. Yeah.
yeah. So whenever you are paired up into these bad matchups, you've got two cards written down that I want to highlight real fast, and that is the Rivalis Penitent and the Truestone Exemplar. So Truestone Exemplar is just kind of a big beefy guy who has Shield Wall 1 and Protection 2. So he's going to make your other units more defensive, and he can absorb some of that damage. But I want to read off the Rivalis Penitent because I think this is a very interesting card, and I'm excited to learn how you use it. So it's a 5-cost silver unit human. It has no accuracy, no power, no range, a movement of 4, a defense of 10, and a health of 9. It has Decaying 2, so whenever you activate this unit, deal 2 damage to it. Bestow Regeneration 2, so other allies within 6 inches gain Regeneration 2, so whenever they activate, they'll recover 2 health. And it's got Noxious Fumes 2, so whenever an enemy within 6 inches activates, deal 2 damage to it. What kind of situations? I mean, I assume that this is going to help a little bit with those swarms, but are there any interesting tips to using this card?
If you can pull it off, you want to play 2 at the same time, because then that counters the Noxious Fumes,
Mm-hmm.
because it will give the other one regeneration. So you don't have that kicking trock on them. So that makes it really good. And then, like, if you just manage to get them in the group, then that is when the unit activates, that's 4 damage they're taking. And that's not a small amount. The downside is they don't attack, so like I feel like these are more of a sideboard card for me. But I do use them in my Gritter deck. But yeah, if you can get 2 of them out at the same time, it feels really nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah,
Well, we talked about it a little bit already. Oh, were you going to add something?
I was just saying, like getting two of them on the field, the penitence isn't common, but it's just such a troll when you can get both of them on. You're like, nope, they're going to be trading off health every round and making everything like the stink clouds stack. So you're just going to be just taking 4 damage. Have fun.
Yeah. All right. So we talked a little bit about how to beat the Seeker, specifically, putting attacks into the ball and forcing her to use her legacy and then using ranged units. But what are some other tips if I'm playing anybody else? Uh, how do I beat Sigrith?
So if you can get them to be aggressive and threat themselves in, that's a really good way. Or if it was a situation where like they have a unit by themselves and they're gonna like try to redeploy off of them, just quickly get in melee range and to stop them from deploying off of them. Um like that, if you have any range, capitalize on the range. And then the priest, kill the priest right away, kill the crossbowman right away. Those are both really useful units that don't have a lot of defense or a lot of help. So they're very easy for like doing spell damage or yeah, the focus firing and then to try to cut stuff off from everyone else.
Interesting.
Yeah, makes sense. Any other final thoughts on Sigrith overall, or anything that has to do with the deck?
Um, I know I don't know how, I think people might have like figured out how to play against her. I know a lot of people would really worried about her after Adepticon, and a lot of people were saying how big of a threat she is. I think she just had. I don't think we said it before. Out of all the secrets, especially the monocolored secrets, she had the lowest learning curve. With the I think a lot of people, but at Adepticon, when people were so new to the game, lean towards her. And why a lot of time when people start playing, she sees a lot of wins. She's very much one that very forgiving when you make mistakes. So I think by far, if you're new to the game and that aren't used to playing games like this, she's a very safe secret to play as you get more comfortable.
Yeah, I'd say
But
that's fair. She's very like beginner friendly.
um, but also like people would like really saying that a lot of this stuff with her needed to be fixed, and the developers were game designers were pretty much like it. Don't worry about it. Everything's gonna be okay. I have seen some of the stuff coming, and like everything is gonna be okay because there's a lot of scary stuff coming, and I don't. And we are not gonna be. Sigrid is not gonna be the threat. I have a good idea of who the threat's gonna be, but it's not gonna be white.
All right, blink 18 times if it's the Polynor meta upcoming.
No,
All
no, it's
right.
yeah,
Um, oh, sorry. Were you going to?
no. I definitely think I'm not gonna say which one, but I definitely one of the pre-seekers I said with a bad matchup for it is gonna get a huge bump when the new secret come out.
Excellent. I can't wait for Ingor meta.
Yeah.
Uh, we're gonna have
I'm
pigs everywhere.
I'm excited for new content.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, for sure. Uh, well, let's close out the episode with our community questions and hot takes segment. We've ramped it up this time. I've got 3 hot takes for you. We're gonna start off with Ethan's abysmal take that he posted the other day.
Uh-huh.
So why don't you tell us your opinion here?
When I eat bananas, but you know, bananas are the most popular fruit in America. Everybody loves bananas. I peel the entire banana so that all that is left of the banana is the actual fruit, and then I eat it.
I feel like that's gotta be the most like I don't know. Like I'm a texture guy, and
Uh-huh.
just feeling the like stringy, slightly sticky, slightly slimy, like just feeling that constantly is the only reason why I hate this.
Yeah, it's like on paper it makes sense that there's nothing wrong with it, but like that in practice it just feels wrong.
That's fair. It's not something. It's something I started doing rather recently. I don't know why. It's just like my brain is just like, well, you got to finish what you started. You.
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, like, yeah, like I get it. But like, yeah, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah. I will say though that this opinion is more popular than I thought it would be.
really?
Like there were a couple of people who agreed. Like I mentioned it to some friends and there were a couple of people that agreed with you and I promptly disowned them. So,
Aha. Aha.
do you guys are you familiar with the concept of aspic?
Aspic. I've heard the
Aspic.
name
No,
before. I should.
I'm
Okay.
not.
Are you familiar with Jello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Imagine that, but a horrible spawn from hell. It's it's like a savory Jello with like meat and vegetables in it.
Ugh. I don't
And
even like Jello, but that sounds way worse.
this
This
is something that Alan, aka Mercier, has been tormenting me with for years on end. I'll be just enjoying my day and he'll send me a picture of like gelatin infused with corn and carrots and like spaghettios or hot dogs. It's not okay.
Mhm.
And so if this episode gets, what do you think, like 20 likes, then I think that we should at Adepticon 2027 bring some aspic and force Alan to eat some.
Man.
I'm
You
looking.
think?
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures online about, and if I go to, I was raised very much in a, if someone offers you food, you take it.
Mhm.
Like, if you go to someone's house and they serve you food, you eat it gratefully. If I go to someone's house and they serve me that, I will leave.
No, you don't eat that. No one eats that. But listen, 25 likes. That's all I care about. If we get
Uh-huh.
25 likes, I will I will make aspic myself in my own kitchen and I will bring it to Adepticon 2027 and Alan will eat it. He's agreed to this. He doesn't know it yet, but he will.
Uh-huh.
There's 26 people in the Michigan Malediction server. I could probably make that happen.
Mobilize the troops. There you
All right.
go.
Now for a take that's actually malediction related. So this is from a comment on Spotify from our friend Joshua, and he says, "Healing is not as good as people think. If you want to play a more competitive deck, there are a lot more cards you should put into your deck before considering healing spells. Prevention and action economy spells are way stronger and can act as a pseudo healing if you delete a unit or prevent them from attacking." Coming from a Sigrith and Greasa player who has done a decent amount of testing. I think this is really interesting because at least like I played Magic the Gathering for like 10 years and there's a card called Lightning Bolt which is 1 mana and it deals 3 damage to any target. And then you've also got this healing card called Healing Salve, I think. No one ever plays it. And it's 1 mana and you gain 3 life. And Lightning Bolt is ubiquitous because dealing damage progresses you towards winning the game. Whereas Healing Salve does not. Like you could have 150 billion life and still lose the game because you didn't progress the game state. You just sat there and gained life, and then eventually your opponent wore it down. Um, I think that Malediction is a much different game, and because the units themselves are like that's the scoring mechanism and you only need to get to 40 points and there are also other ways of acquiring said points. Protecting your units on the board is a little bit more viable, and specifically because the way that the action point economy like just functions as a system. Like if we just take a heal ability on your priest, and that 2 points, like those 2 hit points, kept Sigrith alive, so that she was able to activate, or if it forced your opponent to spend 1 extra AP on an attack to actually take her out. Like those are the minute, like tiny little details that can change a game. And so I definitely feel like I'm somewhere in the middle on this take. Like healing in general is not, it's not super flashy or exciting, and it's not really doing a lot to help you win. However, I do think that there are some cards that all they do is heal damage. And I think that those cards are very playable and very good, um, just because of the way that they interact with the action points. But I think that, like in general, the cards that, like a card that only heals, and I don't remember exactly the name of the, it's like a 2 cost channel.
Healing light.
Yeah.
Healing light.
Like that is not going to be as powerful as a priest that is simultaneously healing and a unit that can pick up a husk or make attacks, and also has prey. So like you're going to want to prioritize something like that. Um, but I mean, I definitely think that something like Healing Light is a valid card choice. But what do you guys think?
So I understand what this person is saying. The fundamental game theory of it is dead units can't deal damage to you. So attacking is a form of defense. Best defense is a good offense. Blah, blah, blah. But I do think that it is a little less cut and dry in this game, because this game isn't just a brawl. It's got an inherent take and hold objective to it in getting the relics and keeping them away from your opponent. So I do think they have a point. They have a very strong point, which is in the vast majority of games, just being offensive and not giving your opponent a chance to do anything is the optimal play. If you look at fighting games, the whole point of fighting games, which is why I don't really gel with them most of the time, is like somebody who's really good at fighting games, you might as well put down the controller. They're never going to give you that in to start playing and building your own stuff. They're just going to be very proactive and hitting you and hitting you and hitting you. And that's fundamentally a more powerful technique than reacting via healing. However, I would say because of the specific scenario that malediction kind of fundamentally puts you in, it's a bit more nuanced than that.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think when you have the choice between preventing and healing, you want to take the preventing, and you want the healing to be coming more from your unit, but then not to let the attack. So having some healing belt over useful. And the nice thing about Sigrith is they can be both, especially if you have Ring of Time, because then you can discard it to prevent damage, and then you can just use Ring of Time to heal.
Yep.
And it's more like we talked about before. It's like depending on the situation, like some game will like, okay, it literally come down to if they kill this one unit, they win. So you gotta put all your resources in whatever way you can to protect that one unit. With sometimes damage preventing, it only good if you have a damage preventing. It did not. There's nothing that completely stopped an attack. The quoted the cracked ability. It only like reduced the damage of the attack. So if a thunder step comes in and crits you and does like 15 damage, I don't know exactly off the top of my head how much he does on a crit.
A bunch.
Yeah. You're not going to prevent all of it. So you want to make sure that your unit have enough that you can prevent what you can and still have enough to hold. So yeah, I get what they're saying, and in principle, you want to prevent when you can, but the healing is good to have just in case.
All right. Well, I think that will bring us to the end of episode 4. Matt, do you have any final shout outs or anything that you want to say before we sign off?
Well, thank you guys for having me. If anyone listening to this is in Michigan, if you go to an event in Michigan, there's like a 60% chance I will be there. And also I created a Maledictin server for players in Michigan called Maledictin in the Mitten. Anyone can message me on Discord, Mattachew, and I can send you a link to that. And I work with the other herald in Michigan, and we work on trying to support each other and get all events going. And we also try to make it and we're all within driving distance of each other, that we don't schedule all events on the same day. So we try to spread it out to give people the most opportunity to come and play.
Nice.
All right, awesome. Well, with all that being said, I hope that you enjoyed episode 4 of Critical Grace, and we will catch you next time.